Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the call this morning. Could I ask you if you can hear my voice and see my screen, just to let me know in the little chat box there, just raise your little hand, just to let me know that you can see my screen. Okay, thanks very much, it's great. And you can hear my voice also, great. First question, I know there's quite a few people registered onto this morning's call, and we're still waiting for them to come in. So 2 questions completely irrelevant. Just to type it into your little chat box there. Firstly, what is the weather like where you are this morning? And let's get that one in first. So if you just type in the little chat box and also just where you are, so I've got that as well. So go ahead, type in your chat box, what is the weather like where you are this morning? Where I am, I saw the thermometer showing it's 5.6 degrees Celsius, but it feels like a warm morning, and I'm just surrounded by a mist cloud at the moment. But it looks like it's going to be a good morning. Okay, we've got Jeff coming in saying it's grey and cloudy, and you're in one part of London. Okay, I got something gone off. So I think this morning we're going to keep the, I know often we unmute people, just because of the number of people registered for this morning, and we'll have to see as time goes by how many people actually manage to make it online. But I think we'll keep it in the chat box this morning, because otherwise we're going to have too many background noises potentially coming in. So, okay, I can see a few more people coming in there. All right, so let's carry on. Good. Graham is coming in, said sunny and cold. Good stuff. Graham, just remind us, where are you based? If you just type that in as well. I don't know if Faye's also in London. Oh yeah, Warrington, says Graham. Good stuff. Okay, so we've got a few people coming in. There's quite a few more expected, but let's get on with it this morning. Okay, so the first question then, what was your biggest win in the past week? So again, like I said, we're going to stay muted this morning, so just please type it into your chat box. And if you could just put a big W next before your question, because that way I'll know which slide we're referring to here. So what would you say was your biggest win in this past week? I'll share with you my biggest win in the meantime while you're busy typing. My biggest win in the past week is that we just opened a little office to put some telesales people in as part of our marketing effort, and been quite amazed at the results in the first week already. Very positive. So yeah, that's been my biggest win. Very excited actually by that. Good stuff. Graham has come in and he said his biggest win in this past week, determined the pod structure. Hey Graham, that's fantastic. I know Jeff, so Ian mentioned that as well. And maybe a little later, just to get you online again to find out a bit more about the latest on the pod structure, because it's a fantastic idea. Okay, so Ian, so Jeff says, getting a plan for JLA Tax, our new boutique tax practice. Fantastic. Good stuff. And for the others of you who've just come online, if you can type in your chat box there, what was your biggest win in the past week? So also a welcome to Jan and to Faye. I'm not sure if Steve is on, he might be. I know this is your first time on this call, so welcome on this morning's call. So yeah, if you could just go ahead and type into your chat box there, what was your biggest win in the past week? And Ian, I see that it looks like you're having problems with staying online, because it looks like you're going off, coming on. If you're on at the moment, go ahead and type in for us as well, what is your biggest win in the past week? Okay, fantastic. So Ian says biggest win, signing up to Go proposal and including Lynn in the pricing project. And it's interesting because I know with Ian, he's done his whole Gantt chart of changing their pricing structure within the practice, and he's busy working his way through that, so good stuff. Jan says biggest win, Jan has just joined us, so she says, actually getting started on the new regime and feeling quite excited and motivated. Yeah, because Jan is now, because she's just started, she's into the rhythm of once a week, setting aside 2 hours to work on the practice. And in a pretty short space of time, the amount that she's already achieved has been quite amazing, actually. So good stuff. Faye says, also starting this program to make changes and seeing Steve's shift of mindset, and she says not yet. So Faye and Steve are husband and wife partners in the practice as well. So yeah, good to hear that. Because Faye has been the fiery one of, come on, let's make the changes, and Steve has been the, oh, let's just be careful about all of this. So it seems like he's made a bit of a mindset shift there. Okay, fantastic. So biggest wins, great. Okay, let's go to the next screen then. Yeah, just type into the chat box one-word answers, your quarterly goals, and also percentage completed for each. So literally just type in one word, my 3 quarterly goals are ABC, and percentage completed for each of those is 0, 10%, 80%, whatever it might be. So I can see Matt has just joined us as well, so welcome on this call this morning, Matt. Matt, we're going to keep it muted this morning because we've got potentially a whole lot of people going to join us on this call. But if you could just go ahead and type into the chat box as well, Matt, your quarterly goals at the moment, as well as percentage completed for each of those. Okay, and as you're busy typing, I'll start reading some of the people who've come in through already. And even for the people who have just joined the program and are fairly new on it, you know, you've got your quarterly goals from your strategic plan, so you know what they are. And this weekly reminder of, oh, what are my quarterly goals? So just go ahead and type in either from memory or your strategic plan or your monthly navigator if you've done those already, what your 3 quarterly goals are and percentage completed for each of those. Okay, so Ian says pricing that they're working on is at 65%. Fantastic. Ian's also working on KPIs at 40%. Great. And Ian says the pod structure is at 80%. Fantastic. Good. Graham has got there, one of his is outsourcing, is at 90%. Hey Graham, that's brilliant. Fantastic. Excellent. Jeff's got budget setting, 100%. Good. Jeff's also got the website project at 50%. And the onboarding process, 10%. So let's see, I'm guessing the onboarding of new clients as a system, so 10%, good stuff. Then Jan saying time management at 5%. Don't worry, Jan, that'll shift fairly quickly, I'm pretty sure. Cloud account system at 5% and staff training at 15%, good. Faye's got debtors management at 50%, great. Matt, recruitment at 60%, brilliant. Making tax digital systems 30%, and freedom 25%. Matt, that's an interesting quarterly goal, but I know what you mean because Matt's trying to work himself out of the business as soon as possible. And actually, I think he had an original date of end of January, or a couple of weeks ago, so he's edging towards that very keenly. And then Faye says also quarterly goals pricing 10%. Yep, good stuff. Okay. Great. Fantastic. Okay, let's go into, I'm going to go to the next screen. If there's any more that come in, I'll read them out. Good. Interesting one here from Faye, leadership at 50%. Now that's quite a wide word, but I know that in Faye and Steve's specific instances about also being a husband and wife as part of the leadership team, they sometimes pull in different directions in front of the team, which is not the greatest approach, and they're busy shifting their minds around that, so that's what she's referring to there, and their whole way of doing that. And she says, massive changes to and Steve working with me. Great. Good. Okay, let's go to the next screen here. So what is your one biggest project this week? Now, ideally, this is the working on the business project, because it's always going to be working in the business stuff. What is your one biggest project this coming week? And if you could type a big P before you answer, that'd be really useful as well. What is your one biggest project this coming week? Okay, we'll just wait for some of the answers to come through. Good stuff. Okay, so Graham is coming in and said, biggest project for this week is, as far as working on the business concerned, set and communicate KPIs for the pods. Good. Jeff says, more work on my boutique tax project. Ian, putting our prices onto co-proposal. Good stuff. So it's good to have some software we can do this with. Brilliant. Jen says, training and making sure the learning has been taken on board and communicated to the team. So Jen's felt that there's some technical skills lacking, so she's busy with the training process with her team, so that's great. Faye's biggest project this coming week, today and Friday to conclude all fee pricing structures and share with the team. Wow, Faye, that is pretty fast. Well, if you can manage that, fantastic. But that's a lot of work you'll be covering. And hey, I know you can do it, so fantastic. Good stuff. If you need feedback from me before you share it with the team, feel free to get it through to me. And I might just come back and say, hey, fantastic, well done. Or there might just be something that pops up and I go, oops, have you thought about this or what about that? That's up to you. So get that through to me if you want to. I'll give you some feedback. Good. Hey Liz, good morning. I see you've joined us as well now. So Liz, if you could just go ahead and type in there into the chat box, what is your one biggest project this coming week? And Faye says, no, she's already been halfway there with the pricing from previous work, but Steve's involvement was a barrier. But already Steve's now on board and fully behind you, so that's good. So we'll just wait for Liz to come in with her one biggest project this coming week. And it's interesting because Liz and Steve work with Eric, so Eric is the managing partner. Eric's intending to leave in about 12 months' time, and Liz and Steve are in process of helping to pull the practice properly into place so that they can take it over in about a year's time. So it's been a real stepping up for them as well into that leadership of, we're not quite the managing partners, but we're getting involved in this as well now. So Liz says, succession planning for Janet's retirement. Good stuff. And Janet's involved with the credit control and stuff as well. Okay, fantastic. Good stuff. All right, so those are the biggest projects. And I definitely want to ask some of you about some of your projects a bit later, but for right now, let's get into the next screen here. Roadblocks questions. Is there anything specific that you need help with right now? So go ahead and type into your chat box if you need anything, and then I can unmute you and we can go through your specific challenge. And that might be a question for me or just a question from anyone else who might have some ideas on something that you're doing. And if you feel that you're quite happy, you're on track, there's nothing that you need help with right now, then just type in a no for me, please, just so I know that you have responded either with a no or actually there's something that you'd like some ideas with. Great. Jeff is saying no, on track. Brilliant. Jeff, whilst you're there, your book that you're currently busy with, by when do you reckon that will be on the shelves? Because I know you're still waiting for a few people to come back with a few things. We're in February now. By when? 3 weeks. Hey, fantastic. Brilliant. So, what, middle March, early March. Wow, fantastic. Good. Jan says no. Graham's got a question here, which we'll open up right now. Graham, let's see if we can unmute you, and hopefully the sound works perfectly. So okay, so Graham, from my side it shows that I've unmuted you, and
yeah, I think that's worked, Rudy.
Okay, fantastic. There we go. Okay, so hey, good morning. So you've got a question here. Do you want to tell us your question? Let's see if we can come up with some ideas.
Because we've determined the new how we want the new pod structure to work within the organisation, and we're planning on rolling that out at a staff training tomorrow morning. But it's how best to communicate it with the staff that aren't the biggest fans of change, shall we say?
Okay, good. Roughly how many people will you be having in that meeting?
There'll be probably about 14.
Sorry, 14? 14.
14, yeah.
Okay. And roughly how many of those, because you know your people well enough, so how many of them do you reckon are going to be completely resistant to change? Or who are the toughest cookies?
So I wouldn't say anyone is completely resistant, but I'd say maybe 2 or 3.
Okay. And this is happening tomorrow, this meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some ideas, a few different angles, and as I'm talking here, if anyone else has any ideas, please type it into the chat box, and we can get you into the conversation as well, because it'd be great to get other ideas as well. So just some thoughts from my side. In the meeting tomorrow, I would suggest try and use stories. So instead of going, okay, this is what's happening, we're making these changes, that's a bit too hard in your face. So maybe bring in stories of, once upon a time as accountants, our predecessors didn't even use calculators. And then calculators came in, it was like the next big thing. And then we didn't use computers, and then we brought in computers. And so just to bring in the story of how change can actually be a really good thing. And so
okay.
Definitely bring stories in, as opposed to this is what's happening. And then from that angle with the stories, carry the concept on of, what, change is a good thing, and we've worked in a certain way for many, many years, and there's something we want to try out. We've seen some examples of other people. It works really well for us, fantastic, and this is what we're thinking.
That's great.
So I bring it from that kind of angle, and also potentially your choice of language as you say it, tone of voice, stay away from the hard words of this is how we're doing it. In the specific case, I reckon more, these are some of the ideas, and even if they have a bit of a discussion, because some of them, as you have a bit of a discussion, if you open up the forum to a bit of a discussion, the people who are resistant will actually raise their fears, which is a good thing, because then you can actually answer them. If someone sits in the room and they've got a fear about, oh, what does this mean, but they don't actually verbalize it, and they may very well not if it's too harsh, then they walk away out of that room with that fear. So you really want to get them into a place where they can speak and talk, and whatever fears come up, whatever is part of the discussion, you can answer that as well. So it's that kind of guidance. So that would be one idea. Another idea is, you only got 1 day, so it might be just a bit too short, but who knows, to use the grapevine or a bit of Chinese whispers. So, the one person that is not, or rather, let me backtrack. Is this currently a bit of a secret or an unknown to the people who are going to be shared this knowledge with tomorrow, or do they already know and expect it?
It is, yeah. It's unknown. There's two staff are aware about it so far, and that's it. And they're sort of keeping it under the hats at the moment.
Okay, so it's a big secret that you're revealing tomorrow. Now, again, sometimes that's good. in this case, it may be useful, and I'm just thinking out loud here, it may be useful to use a bit of the grapevine Chinese whispers. So pick the one person in the office that you know can't resist spreading gossip.
Yeah.
And sit them down and say, listen, I'm going to tell you a big secret, but don't tell anyone else. But we're thinking about this new structure, pods. It's going to be lots of fun. People are going to be in smaller groups, which means that they're much more focused, and to give them the benefits of why that's so great. And tell this person they must keep it a secret. And then hopefully today it gets out around the office that something is happening and we can have a bit of a change, and it's going to be lots of fun. And that way we kind of break the secret beforehand without really breaking it. So it's not a completely brand new thing. So that's another possibility. Another thing that I would think quite serious about is who the people are who are going to be the most resistant to this change. Maybe consider calling them in beforehand one-on-one. So today just sit them aside and say, you know what, that's something I want to discuss with you. It's really important that you know about this, and I really want to get your input on it, because you can bring it from an angle where they feel they've contributed to this idea and somehow actually manage to get them on your side before the meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
You've won half the battle.
Okay.
Now, this would ideally have had a bit more time, a few more days, but even with one day, it can still work. So those are all possibilities, but at the end of the day, you're going to go into the meeting tomorrow, and even if you, if you do none of this stuff, and you go into the meeting and say, well, this is what we're doing, I wouldn't quite necessarily take that approach. It's got to be much more gentle, these are the thoughts and da-da. And whatever comes up, deal with it either there or afterwards. And, at the end of the day, through this process that all of you are on, it is like I always say, it's a bit like having a bird cage, and in that bird cage there are birdies. And what we do through this entire process is we're shaking the bird cage. And what will sometimes happen is that some of the birdies will fly away, and some new birdies will fly in, and some will stay. So I say worst case scenario, although for some people that's a fantastic scenario, but potentially it's just too much for some people, and they say, I don't want to stay here, I don't want to know you, this is crazy, and they run away. That is a possibility as well. It's life. It's part of you guys building what you need to build for the future. Does that make sense?
Okay, that's great, Rudy. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to bring Faye in as well, because it looks like Faye's got some ideas. Faye, let's see if we can get you in here. Faye, in theory, you're unmuted, although it's showing that you're muted by yourself on your side.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, Faye. So welcome in this morning. So you had some ideas, I think you were typing in there, so if you wouldn't mind sharing with Graham your thoughts?
Yeah, it was just probably listening to, it sounded very serious as a sort of proposal to the staff, and so my instinct was to sort of let them know the benefits, let them know it was their ideas that progressed into something sort of, like you said, really pick a few people that you can get on your side that will be the ones nodding and kind of giving you a smile that are going to sort of gravitate towards the rest of the room, that you can kind of, obviously it wasn't anybody else's idea, it's come from the practice management, but if they think that it was somebody else's idea within the firm, then they start to sort of get a team thing going. And we did something yesterday we had Iris come in and do a big thing on their practice management system, their document management. And I'm not a great fan, but my two sticklers in the office who normally would say no to anything like that, I let them have all the decision making. And in fact, they just came round to exactly what I wanted them to think by letting them think it was their choice in the first place. And we've got a great response, so they were fully on board yesterday. So
that's great.
I think letting them know, even if it's not, subtly letting them know that they, I don't know if that makes sense, that they've had an influence in this decision in the first place, will warm them up, I think. That's what I'm trying.
That's good, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Faye, thanks very much. So we'll meet you back up there, so that's great. And Graham, I think, yeah, what Faye said as well, just touching on, stay away from being serious about this whole thing, it's a big thing, and bring in humor as well. And even beforehand, you know, before the meeting starts, shut your eyes and imagine or visualize how well the meeting has gone, everybody's really excited, and you got to the end and people are really on board and excited about the whole thing. That'll also influence what happens in the meeting. It does have an impact.
That's great, thank you.
Who's actually delivering the presentation? Is it you, Ian?
I think it's going to be Ian.
Okay, good stuff. And you know, potentially if Ian wants...
My comment was more because I'm probably going to have a word with a couple of staff today in advance of Ian's presenting it tomorrow. So it was around how to deal with those, but I think doing it on the one-to-one and making them feel included is the best method.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's when you get your buy-in. Good stuff. Okay, and Ian is just coming in with a thanks, Graham. So yeah, fantastic. Okay, Graham. So let me know how it goes, but I'm sure you guys will be more than fine.
Will do. Thanks, Rudy.
Good stuff. Actually, Graham, whilst we got you on here, let me ask you a bit more about your pods, because the whole concept of pod structure is, I won't say alien, but not a lot of people have gone there yet. I know I've asked you guys before about the pod structure, but would you mind just giving us especially for those who have not heard much about this before, because you guys have ventured into the concept of, well, let's create these pod structures. Just tell us about your journey so far and your experiences as you've gone through putting things together up to this point.
So yeah, it was something we talked about looking at maybe, I don't know, probably 2 months ago, before Christmas now, and then we had, in a short space of time, 2 staff hand the notice in, so it kind of invigorated us to sort of what we'd already looked at is reassess and actually look at exactly what the clients needed from us in order to service them best, and then work the pods out to fix that, fix that, make that solution for the clients really.
Okay, and how have you gone about in splitting your teams or the work and the clients? What's been your process for that?
Sorry, it cut out there, Rudy. Did you say repeat yourself?
Share with us how you've gone about splitting, or your process for splitting the team, splitting the clients or the work into pods.
We looked at the sort of what.
I've lost Graham's sound there now. Oops, Graham, we've lost your sound. Okay, no, it doesn't sound like he's coming back. Graham, I'm going to mute you. I wonder, Ian, because you've probably gone, oh no, although I know Graham has been the project manager in this one. Graham, we seem to have lost your sound, so that shows that Graham's gone offline there. Okay, so we're going to mute Graham up now once he's gone offline, and we'll either a bit later or maybe next time we can get back to the question. We seem to have lost him there. Okay, good. So let's make some other questions here. Faye, I think you've got a question. Let me just unmute you again. And Faye, from my side, it shows that you're unmuted. Great. Hi, Faye.
Hi.
Am I correct in thinking that you have a question here as well?
Yeah, it's a very general question. So in terms of this week, I'm really focused on getting my life balance back in order, getting the on-business stuff done, that I'm honestly sort of running out of time to do my sort of actual client work, and I don't want to allow myself to go into extra hours and go, oh, I'll do it at the weekend like I might have done before. So I'm just thinking aloud really as how I should manage it, whether I just allow those things to roll into next week, and there's nothing urgent, but whether I just take my foot off the pedal and say it doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be done this week, or whether it's more a case of just my own self-pride, I think, wanting to get it done, but not giving there's not enough time to do it. if that makes sense. I think
Okay.
probably answered my own question.
Yeah, probably are. So, good question. And I think it's really important to, in this kind of process, always keep in mind that the things are happening in transitional steps. I think that sometimes going from black to white it may be a bit too harsh. So look at what you've got there. Some things can slip into next week. Some things might not be so useful to slip into next week. The ideal is that you have the perfect balance this week, but that may not necessarily happen, and you might only get it in a few weeks' time or a few months' time. So it is very much about making a list of what needs doing, prioritizing what is the most important, and making sure that happens, and decide for yourself what can slip and what can't slip. But the balance is keeping the balls in the air, because if too many balls drop, that will create unbalance down the line. So I don't have an absolute answer of this is how you do it. It's going to be your own judgment on what is there, your own priorities, and be as gentle on yourself as possible in this process, as opposed to today is black and tomorrow is white, whoop, done. Sometimes that can work, but it's not necessarily always the best approach.
Yeah.
Now that is an incredibly vague answer. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, it's judgment. Yeah, it's just going back to trusting your judgment and knowing what is the right thing to do, and just reassessing what's urgent and what's not, and rather than just being the martyr and doing it all, just reassess what is actually urgent and prioritize those things. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
And
like me, absolutely, and it's about learning to delegate as well. And sometimes in life there's phases where you do very little, and sometimes there's phases where you just got to jump in and do. I mean, for me, I'm very good with the work-life balance, but even for me, last night, I think 10:15, I was reviewing some documents which needed doing. That's quite unusual for me to be working those kind of hours in my world, but sometimes you just got to jump in and do what you need to do, and that's life.
Yeah.
Okay, so with an incredibly vague answer, does that some ideas?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, Faye, good stuff. I'm going to mute you back up now again. It looks like Graham has come back on again, so let's see if we can unmute him again. No, for some reason it just doesn't want to unmute him. Graham, I have no idea why I can't unmute you from this side. So let's go on. Graham, we'll come back to your pod ideas another time then. Let's move on to Matt has a question as well. Matt, let's get you, see if we can unmute you. Hello, Matt.
Hi.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so you've got a question as well then?
Yep, the question is basically that there's been quite a lot of success this week with selling special projects. The problem is that we're suffering a resource to deliver the projects, which are in various sizes. But in general, because of our resource deficiencies, we're not really controlling it too well. So I think the turnaround time in delivering these projects is unacceptable. And whilst they're relatively easy to sell, you've got to deliver to get the full impact, obviously, in terms of goodwill. And have you got any templates or any suggestions or any control documents which would assist us in delivering the projects that we should deliver within whatever stipulated time is stated?
Okay, good question. And this is definitely a question open to anybody else if you've got any ideas on Matt's, on answers for Matt's question, yeah? So Matt, let's just check. So the one element here is, okay, so we've got a special project we bring on board. On the one hand, we're saying we don't have enough resources, so we don't have enough people to do the work. Is my understanding correct there? Okay, so that's the one hand, we haven't got enough people to do the work. And on the other hand, our system for ensuring that it's on track and being controlled isn't particularly strong. Is my understanding correct as well? Okay, so the two elements, on the one hand, we haven't got enough people. Now, that's an interesting concept, because I've definitely seen this numerous times in my life where people will say initially, oh, we just don't have enough people, when actually, because it's being managed so weakly or badly, the reality is that actually we have got enough people, but they're just being pretty ineffective and inefficient, and that's why stuff isn't happening. So let's go to the system side of things then. So tell me at the moment, so give me, okay, this may be way too technical for me, but let's go, keep it simple. Give me an example of a special project that you've brought in.
Now, I'll give you an example of one that's happened this week, which is relatively simple. But one shareholder director leaving a business, and we have to go back with the proposal for suggestions for his exit.
Okay, so that is a project, because anything is a project. Anything with more than 2 steps is a project. And for every project, we would like a project manager. And ultimately, in my simplified view of the world, for a project, I want something like a Gantt chart. So it's some kind of project plan of, in order to make this happen, these are the steps that need to happen. The next column is, this is who's going to do it. And the next columns are the days or the weeks for when it gets done. Because that's then a plan that, you know, even if you as a client of mine say, well, I'm going to implement Xero or whatever it might be, I'm going to say to you, please give me a Gantt chart or some kind of project plan, let me review that, make sure there's nothing missing there, and then if we're both happy, I'll say, okay, go and make it happen, implement it, and then you're off. So our systems we have, so I mean, that's, you know, it is a simple, it's a simple version, you know, what's the exit plan for the shareholder leaving the business. Firstly, was it clearly defined on the who, what, when triangle, who the project manager was? Or the person responsible? Okay, so on a who, what, when triangle, we weren't clear on the who. Okay, the what is clearly figure out the steps for the exit plan. And the when corner, was it clearly defined when the when was?
No, we've not went back. We've got to go back because the client's saying, look, when are you going to come back to us? And I'm just kind of mumbling.
Okay, so and that's totally fine. I completely understand where you're at. So let's look at it's essentially the delegation of this job. So we've got to hand it over to a project manager. So it sounds like, from what you're saying there, we don't have a who on the who, what, when corner yet, and it almost doesn't sound like there's a when on that. For example, Michael, I need this by Tuesday, as an example, whoever it might be. So would it be fair to say that for the specific task, there wasn't a project manager with a very clear who, what, when triangle?
The issue is actually, you know, one who's and two.
Oh, sorry, Matt, you're busy breaking up there. I wonder if you could. Let's try the audio. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you to actually dial into that audio number. But let's try that again because we just missed what you were saying there.
I was saying that the main problem with this one is who has the capability to do the project, and have they got the available time to deliver it?
Okay. So have you already made a decision about who in your team might be the project manager, the who person on this job?
I think it's actually going to fall back in me.
Which is not the ideal, because as the owner of the business, you want to get rid of stuff.
Yep.
So besides yourself, who else in the business could do this project?
Perhaps Michael.
Okay. And wider than you and Michael, besides Michael, who else might be able to do this project? Or even 80% of it, or 70% of it?
Perhaps say John McCauley, the tax person.
Okay. If John did it, do you think that he could essentially do 100% of this project, or do you think he would only get most of it done and you or Michael have to review it and put the final touches in?
I touches in.
Sorry, Matt, the sound dropped again. You think you'll do...
I would have to put in the final touches.
Okay, so he would take it to about 90-95%. Okay, so potentially we've got a who, because I know you and Michael are pretty snowed under, so potentially it's John. In John's workload, no, to do this job, if you did this job, how long do you reckon it would take you to do it, if you sat down and focused on it?
3 hours.
Okay, if John did this job, do you think he could get his 90-95% done in 3 hours as well, or a bit longer?
Maybe a wee bit longer.
What, 3.5 hours?
Yeah, 4 hours, say.
4 hours? Okay. So, I guess the next step then is to find out whoever schedules your work to sit down with John and find out how he's going to potentially manage 4 hours in his world. If he can, fantastic. If he can't, could he do perhaps some elements of it and Michael and or you could do other elements of it so that, for example, he does, so he's trying to chunk it and break it into smaller pieces. Could he potentially do 2 hours, so a certain part of the job, and Michael or you do another few hours, another part of the job? Could that be a possibility?
It could be.
Okay. Because the worst case scenario is that you spend up doing 3 hours doing it, because as the owner of the business, you know, the king piece on the chessboard, you don't want to be running around all over the show. That's not where you're trying to get to. So who, what, when? So potentially it might be John, or John and Michael, or John and Michael and you, or John and you. So that's the who bit. We've got a what. The when is both doing it internally, but as well as managing the client's expectations. What is the latest date that the client would need this? So what do you reckon? Today's the 15th of February. By when do you reckon the latest the client would put up with before it gets
the latest, the end of the month.
Okay. So in other words, you've got another 2 weeks to make this happen. So the question is, can John find another 2 weeks? I mean, so can he find the 4 hours over the next 2 weeks?
I'm sure he could.
Yeah. Okay. So John's got to find 4 hours, ideally in the next week or so, that you've got time to review this work as well. Okay. So if potentially it can be John, it's going to take roughly 4 hours. So we've got on the who, what, when triangle, we've got a who, which is John. The what is work and creators, exit options. And the when is within the next 10 days, or give a specific date. If you did that, do you think that this specific project might be achieved?
Yes, I'm sure it can be. And it's down to actually putting your foot in the ball, taking the time to make sure that it's defined in the terms that you're saying.
That's a massive key. You've hit the nail right on the head there. Absolutely. As the king piece on the board, it's about thinking and planning. What we just did there was a very simple planning exercise. But that is part of your role as the king piece.
Okay.
So that logic of saying, okay, what needs doing, ideally, if it's a bigger project, exit options might be simple enough. But if it's a big enough project, I'd ideally want John to give me a bit of a Gantt chart of, to make this happen, what do we need to do or look at, or what are you going to be doing? The who might be John all the way through, but there might be other people involved. And the when, well, I'll be doing this on Monday, and I'm going to be doing that on Tuesday, and I'll be doing this on Wednesday, just so that they can give you this plan, because the minute they've written down their plan to say, this is how I'm going to make this happen, they've got a plan to implement and follow. And often, and I see this with most of my clients, they'll come to me and say, Rudy, I'm stuck with X. And essentially what I'm saying is, let me see your project plan for this. And just the very fact of I've jotted this down, or I've written it down, suddenly there's clarity and, oh, okay, I'm unstuck and I can go and make it happen now. So, this may be so simple that you say, well, I don't need that kind of thing because John will just know what to do. But I promise you, the minute John writes down the 3 steps he's got to do, or the 5 steps, it makes it clear in his head, which means he'll be much more able to implement it. So, in the simple process we just went through there of saying on the who, what, when triangle, who's the who, we've got the what, and when's the when. And in this case, we've got a possible resource as well other than you and Michael. Tell me what you take away from the process we've just gone through, because that's more important.
I actually think it's pretty obvious what you're saying, but I sold 4 special projects yesterday, and if I'm being honest, I've been into snow blindness a wee bit because I'm thinking I can't deliver this, and I haven't got the resource. So I think in each one of them I've just got to go through the process that you went through with me there, and just make sure that we manage the expectations internally that we can do it, and externally with the client, so that they're not sitting waiting and I'm sitting here mortified because we're not delivering.
Okay, so could you take from this process and apply more of it on your other projects so that you manage internal as well as external?
Absolutely.
Great. Let's just we've got a few questions and ideas on there. So Jeff, let's just open you up because you've got some more ideas from Matt. So let's unmute Jeff. Jeff and Thierry, we should be able to hear you now.
Hi there.
Hi, Jeff.
I get what Matt's saying. It's a pain. I think
Sorry, Jeff, just going to jump in here. Your voice is a bit soft. You could just come a bit close to the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I just changed offices. I know Mark's a funny place. Yeah, with a project like that, I think maybe the tax person needs a little bit more. Maybe Matt just briefing, right? These are the 4 options. Set it out on a spreadsheet. This is what each PowerPoint. This is what each will look like. You'll know the tax consequences. So maybe a little bit more direction might be better. And also, just sometimes, and it's a pain. It doesn't give you. It's all short term. But if there's these projects. I mean, if it was me, I couldn't not do them. I couldn't not get them done properly, and I just do it myself. I know that's really against exactly what Matt's trying to do, but you're sitting with whatever it's going to be, 8-10 grand worth of fees for a couple of days' work. You know what? If it were me, I'd just do them.
Yeah,
I know that's not what you want to hear.
And also, just to mention here, just for everyone listening, one of Jeff's biggest challenges that we're busy working on is pulling him out of the business. So yes. And, like a bit like you as well, Jeff, Matt is very snowed under, and the pressure of that is immense. So, yeah. Okay, good stuff. Great ideas there. So, yes, Matt, give in that initial planning phase to give a bit more guidance as well. So, but I would recommend stay out of doing it as far as possible.
Thank you. It's good advice.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks, Jeff. Let us also bring in, I'm just going to mute Jeff up again. Ian, I've seen your question there. Faye, let's bring you in because you had some ideas there as well. So let's bring Faye in again. Faye?
Yep, me again.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, very pragmatically, because my background is tax. So if I was given that when I was in an employed environment, I think I would, if I was just sort of sent away to do it, I'd panic. And I would, if I was sort of given it with a bit of commercial direction, so as the sort of partner being the decision, giving us the ideas to sort of flourish, shall we say, I would have probably got that done and felt excited about it had I worked with another person, so like an accounts manager or something. So teaming the tax person up with somebody, I think practically you'll get 2 different commercial viewpoints and you'll get the right answer, rather than it being a just a tax decision because they won't look at the commercial decisions around it in the same way as you or one of your accounts managers might. And that's only going from my experience being given stuff like that in a firm previously. It's quite easy to go straight into avoidance and avoid doing that and deal with all the compliance and other planning that's in front of you.
Good stuff. Okay, thanks very much for that. Good. Okay, let's mute Fab there. And yeah, again, if you've got sufficient resources and you've got enough people to share that, great. And sometimes we've got to go with what we have and make it work. But yeah, Matt, I reckon if you give, as part of the planning, sufficient guidance, which doesn't have to take a lot of your time, and then there's a checkpoint either during the project and definitely at the end to make sure it's on track, it can happen. Okay, Matt, does that answer your question there? Oh, lost you a little bit there. I think you were saying it answered your question.
Thank you.
I'm hoping it said that. Okay, good stuff. We did have a question here from Ian about how you're pricing it, but I'm thinking, Ian, if you don't mind, I'm going to leave that question out of it because that's on a specific project and it's a completely different question because Matt's related to how do I get it done. Pricing is a whole topic on its own right. So if you don't mind, just from a time perspective, I'm going to skip that one for right now. Graham, let's see if we can unmute you again because it would have been pretty useful. No, for some reason I'm just completely unable to unmute Graham. So that leaves us with a few more minutes. Does anyone else have any other questions, or are you all happy that you're on track? I think everyone said they're pretty much on track, and the people who have asked the questions have come in. Good, that's great as well. Okay, Graham says, sure, Ian can answer the pod question. Okay, Ian, let's see if we can get you in here for a few more minutes. Ian, on my side it's showing that you're, no, I've got Ian as 2.
Hello.
Hi Ian, hey, great, fantastic. Okay, so yes, would you mind, sorry, just on my previous comment about, are you okay if we skip your question on pricing to Matt, because I'm just...
Oh yeah, no problem, I was just, obviously, pricing's a hot topic with me at the moment, so just curious.
Okay. Absolutely. Okay, so let's leave that for now. So, do you mind sharing with us, because Graham said that you can answer the question on the pod, just so far through the process, what's been your biggest learnings by putting that in place? How have you managed to split people up in the jobs? Just tell us a bit more about your process so far.
Well, we have meandered in that we had a few thoughts in mind in having small jobs, big jobs, and audits as different pods, and just splitting it up that way. But we're very fortunate in that we have a spread of staff that we can actually split into 2 pods who are capable of doing the audits, the small jobs, and the big jobs as individual pods. So we've gone that way, keeping it very simple, and just allocating the clients as equally as we can between each pod, which is again very fortunate in that it looks like we've got resource to fit the bill there. And
okay,
Graham's done most of the work in analysing the fees. Yeah, sorry, Rudy.
Can I just ask a question
Hello?
just to clarify my own understanding?
Yeah.
How many pods do we have? Or are we going to have?
Not 2 pods, only two pods.
Okay. 2 pods. And we said we're splitting the job into, here's the small jobs, here's the big jobs, and here's the audits. So
But yeah, we're merging all those jobs. Each pod will have a spread of small jobs, big jobs, and audits as it happens. And like I said, we've got the personnel to fall into each pod. So
okay,
we're almost like a mini firm within each pod.
Okay, so you've chosen not to do it by any fancy special way of niching or anything like that. You just
not
essentially
at the moment. It was a consideration.
Okay. fantastic. And what were your thoughts on when you put the people into the separate pods? What was the thought process involved there? How did you match people into pods?
Well, it felt, like I said, we've got people with different skill sets, so we split the skill sets into each pod, if you see what I mean, and then a lot of the staff have got client relationships anyway, so a lot of the clients went into their respective pods, and then we had to, as Graham mentioned, we had a couple of staff leave, and so in essence we just had to reallocate those clients between the separate pods, and again there's a bit of going backwards and forwards, but we've come up with quite a balanced pod. The one thing which we changed at the last minute, we've got two people, the payroll person and the tax manager. Originally they were going to be almost in a pod on their own and looked a bit isolated, so we've actually decided to put them in a pod, to actually include them in a pod, so they feel part of a team rather than in isolation.
Okay, fantastic.
That was the final decision.
Okay, good. And the structure of your pod, do you have a junior, senior pod manager, or
yeah, the pod managers, that they were an automatic choice. We knew the pod leaders straight from the start, and then we've got some almost qualified people and some qualified by experience and trainees. So there is a blend in each pod.
Okay, great. And so therefore, how many people do you have per pod then?
We've got 4 in one, and we're trying to recruit another person for that pod. That's 5. That would be, and then we've got 4 plus the payroll and the tax manager in another, so there'll be 6 in another.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we are trying to grow. We're still recruiting. We've got interviews this afternoon, and hopefully later in the week. So we are looking to fill gaps at the higher level and at the very junior level. So we are considering apprentices again.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I must say in my experience, somewhere between 4 and 6 people per pod is a good number. It's a good, healthy number.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, fantastic. And I know Graham, I think, made a comment earlier about working on KPIs for the pods and stuff. So well done, you guys are right on track. Excellent. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, Ian, thanks very much for that. Good. So just aware of the time here. Just before 10, so let's get on to our next slide. And this one is your biggest insight to take away from today. So if you could just go ahead and type that into the chat box, would be great. What's been your biggest insight or takeaway from today? Good. Graham has come in and said it's all about the planning. That is so massive. You know, my kids, they're 4 and 6 years old now, and one of the, it's a little rhyme that I just keep on drumming into their heads all the time. It's, what is it? Team, plan, do. 3 words. Team, plan, do. You're going to tidy up your room. Who's your team? Tell me what is your plan for tidying up your room, and only then do you get into the doing bit. Most people want to jump into the doing bit as the first step. That's crazy. Team, who's my team? What is my plan? And then I do. Team, plan, do. Team, plan, do. Team, plan, do. Okay, that's for the kids. So Liz, planning and organization, absolutely brilliant. Great. Jeff's had to go, unfortunately, because we've got a 10 a.m. meeting. Good. Ian's biggest takeaway, Faye and Rudy were brilliant in helping me with the content and format of tomorrow's pod launch meeting. Great. Jan says, for any jobs that are causing concern for any individual team member to plan in their project with dates and times required. They can then forget the worry until time to be actioned. Absolutely. Good stuff. Okay. So I can see Matt also had to go. So hey, I wish all of you a fantastic rest of the day and the rest of the week. And Faye just came in here quickly as well. She said sometimes you lose sight of what is best, So knowing that people are in the same boat as you really helps to share. Absolutely. All right, then everyone, I hope you have a fantastic day, a great rest of the week, and never get stuck. If you get stuck with anything, give me a shout. All right then, bye for now.